Yo, what's going on, everyone? This is Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about players/defenders who the Lakers could trade for who are making under $8 million. And the reason why this is important is because if a player is only making below $8 million, then that means all the Lakers really need to trade is Dalton Knecht plus maybe another veteran minimum contract. So it would be very easy financially to do. So I have a list of 8 players. All of them are defenders to an extent that the Lakers could trade for come the deadline. And all of these players, again, make under $8 million. But before we jump into it, if I could please ask you guys to like this video, comment down below. Please help drum up the engagement. But most importantly, please do me a huge favor and click subscribe on this channel. It would help me out greatly. Also, if you want to support the work that I do in any small way financially, patreon.com/The Lakers Legacy Podcast, buy me a coffee. Or you can also become a member to the Lakers Legacy Podcast channel, where I provide you guys with monthly perks in the form of exclusive videos, exclusive live streams eventually. You guys will eventually be able to commission me to make the types of breakdowns you want. If you want a specific player you want me to break down, if you're a member, I will do it. So consider becoming a member. Not only do you help support me in a very cheap way, but you get some perks that other people don't. With that said, why don't we jump into things and get into my list of 8 defenders that the Lakers could trade for who make below $8 million. In other terms, this video can also essentially be titled, "Who will the Lakers trade Dalton Knecht for?" Because he will be the main salary ballast and asset going out. I don't think we will need to trade the 2031 first for any of these players. All right, first off, let me start with the most pipe dream player out of this list, because I don't actually think that he'll get traded. I think the team he's currently on actually wants to find a way to keep him long term. So he's probably the most unlikely. So that's why I will get him out of the way. And let's talk about, first and foremost, my number one candidate, my number one defender making under $8 million. And let's talk about Keon Ellis out of the Sacramento Kings. So Keon Ellis is currently on an expiring $2.3 million contract. He is a shooting guard. He is still only 25 years old. Keon Ellis is 6'4" in height with a pretty long 6'9" wingspan for his height. He weighs 167 pounds. Now, last year with the Kings, he averaged 8.3 points per game, 1.5 steals per game, and a pretty healthy 1.7 three-pointers made per game on a very efficient 43% from 3. Now, what I like the most about Keon Ellis, actually, because we kind of know who he is as a defender. He's scrappy. He pressures up on guys, guards them 90 feet of the court. Like, we kind of know this is the point of attack defender and hound that you would want on your team, right? He's Patrick Beverley 2.0. But the thing that I was most encouraged about with regards to Keon Ellis last season was just the strides he made as a three-point shooter. I mean, this dude had a game where he hit 9 threes and had 33 points. He had another game where he hit 7 threes. So it's not just him being fluky and getting hot with that three-point shot. Like, I think this guy can legitimately shoot, as evidenced by 43% from 3 on a healthy 1.7 three-pointers made per game. Now, you hope that eventually rises to 2+ three-pointers made per game, but so far so good with Keon Ellis, which is why I think the Sacramento Kings are probably just going to keep him for the long term, and which is why the Sacramento Kings, you're hearing rumors of them trying to move off of guys like Malik Monk, and prioritize making space for Keon Ellis. Whether or not they're able to come to an extension agreement with Keon Ellis before the season starts is another question, but even if they aren't able to do that, I feel like they will want to re-sign Keon Ellis next summer to a new deal. So probably unlikely, but you never know with these things, and negotiations may break down. And if they do, Keon Ellis would probably be at the top of my list with regards to trying to find that prototypical point of attack perimeter defender. I know he's not the wing defender that the Lakers need, but to get Keon Ellis in now while Marcus Smart is still on the team and Marcus Smart paving the way for Keon Ellis to be the next Marcus Smart, I don't know. Keon Ellis is the exact type of starting shooting guard who can also space the floor that I would want next to Luka Doncic or Austin Reeves. So Keon Ellis might be a pipe dream, but there goes my first defender trade target making under $8 million. All right, let's move on to number 2, and let's talk about a Brooklyn Net, and let me bring up Zaire Williams. Now, Zaire Williams is an interesting case because at the time of this recording, he technically hasn't even signed his new contract with the Brooklyn Nets because he agreed to, even before free agency started, he agreed to a new 2-year, $12 million contract with the Nets. Again, he hasn't put pen to paper because the Nets are still trying to figure out what they want to do with their cap space, if they want to absorb salaries, get an asset, and then sign Zaire Williams after that. But regardless, Zaire Williams, when all is said and done, when the dust settles, is making $6 million this year and then $6 million next year. I'm not sure if it's a player option or a team option because, again, that contract and those terms have not been released. Zaire Williams is a small forward. He is still currently only 23 years old, which is kind of crazy. He is a great 6'9" in height with a 6'10" wingspan. Now, he's a bit frail, 185 pounds, but last season was probably Zaire Williams' most complete season from an all-around perspective. Offensively, he averaged 10 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 1 steal, and then he hit a very healthy 1.6 three-pointers made per game. But on top of that, I just really like the way he played on defense, the way he scrapped, the way he hustled, his motor out on the court when defending guys like Jason Tatum, using his active hands to be a ball hawk and jump passing lanes to take it down the other way for easy buckets. Like everything he did with his length and the way that he shadowed perimeter ball handlers, I was very encouraged by from Zaire Williams. And to this point, he still doesn't have that reputation of being like an elite 3-and-D guy, but I think people will start wisening up to that fact. And it's why the Brooklyn Nets have agreed to re-sign him to this new deal, you know? And if the Lakers hadn't signed Jake LaRavia, Zaire Williams was a guy that I kind of wanted them to go for, you know, get this young wing in your system now before he truly pops. And so Zaire Williams is a candidate who, even though he re-signed with the Nets, I would still try and inquire about and try and trade for, you know, because maybe the Nets just re-sign him to keep the asset. And maybe they would rather take a flyer on a guy like Dalton Knecht. Maybe they need the shooting more, whereas the Lakers kind of just need the defense more. They need that athleticism. Now, he's not super explosive, but he's still athletic, and he's lanky and rangy. 6'9" with a 6'10" wingspan. I kind of call Zaire Williams like the Cam Reddish with a good head on his shoulders, a less erratic Cam Reddish. If we can exercise the Cam Reddish out of him right now, he does a lot of the things that Cam Reddish did well in terms of tracking ball handlers, slithering himself through screens and making himself skinny. So I really like Zaire Williams, and I would inquire about him once more at the deadline, and I wouldn't mind potentially giving up Dalton Knecht for him. So there is my number 2 candidate for another defender who's making under $8 million that I think the Lakers should look at. All right, let's move on to number 3. Now, I'll just point out that these numbers don't necessarily coincide with how I would rank these players personally. This is just how I organize them. So, number 3, let's talk about Vince Williams Jr. out of the Memphis Grizzlies. Currently, Vince Williams Jr. is on a $2.3 million contract. Next season, the Grizzlies have a $2.4 million club option on him. So this is a great bargain of a deal that gives whichever team he's on control. And so they can extend him if they want to as well, but I don't know if they will. Anyways, Vince Williams Jr. can play the shooting guard, small forward, power forward position. He's that versatile. Vince Williams Jr. is still only 24 years old. He is 6'5" in height with a nice 7-foot wingspan and weighs a solid 205 pounds. So last season, Vince Williams Jr. was very injured. So I'm not even going to bother to put his stats up. And I'm going to give you his stats from 23-24, the last season he was fully healthy, because that's when he sort of, and granted, the Memphis Grizzlies were tanking. It was a looter in a riot situation. But having said that, Vince Williams Jr. stepped into the starting lineup. When he got minutes, he produced. And so the last season he was healthy in 23-24, Vince Williams Jr. averaged 10 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, a really nice 3.4 assists, and he shot 38% from three. Now, that percentage regressed this season on a smaller sample size because, again, he was unhealthy. So the three-point shooting is still a TBD with regards to Vince Williams. But even this season, man, I was watching tape where the Memphis Grizzlies sicked Vince Williams Jr. on like Steph Curry, and they were consistently putting him on the best perimeter ball handler on the opposing team. Now, he would switch off with guys like Jalen Wells and pretty much Jalen Wells, and the Grizzlies played this sort of like switching defense scheme where sometimes Jake LaRavia would pressure the ball handler up the court, and then it would be Marcus Smart. But mostly the sole responsibility for hounding the opposing team's best ball handler, that usually fell on Jalen Wells or Vince Williams Jr. So Vince Williams Jr. to me is a very sneaky play. Now, whether the Memphis Grizzlies would ever do an interconference deal with the Lakers is another question, but Vince Williams is a nice money ball play if the Lakers can make it work. If the Lakers actually have a pro personnel scout now, thanks to Mark Walters, who is actually looking deeply into these things, because Vince Williams, even though he's only 6'5", he plays much bigger than his 6'5". This dude skies out of nowhere for blocked shots. Like, you just have to love his motor. He's very scary as a perimeter defender, and he's even scarier as a chase down shot blocker. You know, he'll come out of nowhere and meet you at the rim and just use that physicality and force against you, which is what I really like about Vince Williams. And offensively, 3.4 assists per game. This dude is a guy who can handle the rock in a pinch. He can run the pick and roll for you in a pinch, like a little bit poor man's Draymond Greenish, a little bit poor man's Jeremy Sochan-ish, but the 38% from three during his last healthy season gives me a lot of confidence. So keep Vince Williams Jr. in mind. I really like him as a low-key Moneyball target for the Lakers. All right, let's move on to number 4. I'm going to try and speed things up a little bit, and let's talk about the Miami Heat's Haywood Highsmith. So Haywood Highsmith is actually probably one of the older players on this list, but Haywood Highsmith is currently on a $5.6 million expiring contract. He plays the small forward, power forward position. He is 28 years old currently. I believe he turns 29 in December. Haywood Highsmith is 6'5" with a nice 7-foot wingspan. He also weighs a pretty nice and sturdy 220 pounds. Now, his offensive stats won't jump off of the page for you. Only 6.5 points, 3.4 rebounds, 1 steal per game last season, but he did shoot 38% from three on low volume. But with Haywood Highsmith, and it should be noted that Haywood Highsmith is currently recovering from, I believe, an ACL knee surgery that he had this summer, but he should be ready to go maybe by the time the regular season starts. Having said that, if everything checks out with him health-wise, when he's healthy, Haywood Highsmith is a professional defender who knows the fundamentals, who knows how to do all of the right things for you, and it's why the Miami Heat made him a starter despite these paltry-looking offensive stats. He's a guy who you can trust night in, night out to play not only great perimeter defense, to not only bring the hustle and motor for you, you can sick him on the opposing team's best ball handlers, but he's also a great team defender who knows how to rotate well, who knows how to help his teammates out. And so I really like Haywood Highsmith as a connective defender, but also if you need him to be, he can be your primary point of attack defender as well. Now, he's getting a little bit older, so, you know, that might be a problem, but given the fact that he's on this expiring $5.6 million, it's also why he's probably more gettable than a lot of these guys. Now, should the Lakers give up Dalton Knecht? I don't know. I'm not sure. Haven't thought about it too hard yet. I might do it if everything checks out with him health-wise and the Lakers are able to re-sign him to a new, somewhat cost-effective deal moving forward. Again, the only problem is he's kind of on the tail end of his 20s, and you wonder how much gas he has left. But so far, from what I've seen of Haywood Highsmith, and you can trust that he's been getting pretty heavy minutes and a pretty big role from an organization like the Miami Heat, who does well with player development. Given all of that, I would love to take a flyer on Haywood Highsmith. Now, the Lakers' history with Miami Heat players or trading for or signing Miami Heat players has not been great, but maybe if we trade for them instead of sign them in free agency, things will work out. But yeah, with that said, that's Haywood Highsmith. All right, moving on to my number 5 defender that the Lakers should look at on the trade market, who's making under $8 million. Let's go back to the Sacramento Kings and let's talk about Devin Carter. So Devin Carter is the former number 14th pick of the 2023 NBA draft, I believe, or maybe 2024. He's the same draft class as Dalton Knecht. Yeah, number 14th pick. Devin Carter is making $4.9 million this year, and then he has a club option for $5.1 million next season. Devin Carter is a point guard / shooting guard. He is 23 years old. He is 6'3" in height with a very long 6'9" wingspan, given how short he is. And then he also weighs a pretty nice 194 pounds, a 6'3" guard weighing 194 pounds with a 6'9" wingspan. Kind of crazy. So Devin Carter had a very, even more so than guys like Vince Williams, had a very injury-stricken rookie season. He barely played. By the time he got back, he was just trying to get his legs underneath him. So it would be very pointless for me to show you guys his 3 points per game rookie season averages. So I'm going to give you his Providence stats, his senior year with Providence, and why he ended up becoming a lotto pick for the Sacramento Kings. During his senior year, Devin Carter averaged 19 points, 8.7 rebounds, 3.6 assists, and 1.8 steals per game. He also shot a pretty good percentage from three-point land and showed really nice volume as well. Although in the NBA, the three-point shot will continue to be the thing that really shapes Devin Carter moving forward, I believe. He does have a kind of a wonky wind-up looking shot, but he made it work for himself during his senior year in college. We'll see if it can translate to real NBA play once he gets a full season under his belt healthy. But yeah, Devin Carter, I know it's kind of a risk, but he was a player that I was super high on in Dalton Knecht's draft class. And that was a guy that Tommy and I were angling for before he got picked by the Sacramento Kings. Just because Devin Carter is sort of this like do-it-all utility guard. I know fans are going to look at the 6'3". Why do we want a 6'3" guard? But don't just look at the size, because this is a guard who can do everything for you. 8.7 rebounds per game his senior year of college. Imagine a 6'3" guard averaging 8.7 rebounds. The 3.6 assists, you obviously wish that was 6 assists, but he's kind of more of a combo guard who defends for you. So I would almost, again, 1.8 steals for Devin Carter is crazy. He was getting comps like Derek White coming out of college. And so if you envision like a slightly shorter Derek White, again, the three-point shot is a question mark, but think of Devin Carter as having that Derek White type ceiling, or maybe even like a Jalen Suggs type ceiling. A defender, a nasty defender who's physical, who can rebound the ball a la Josh Hart for you, but can also put up buckets, can also play make for you in a pinch. He can definitely be that secondary ball handler, maybe even primary ball handler. But most of all, you love that he competes on the defensive end of the floor. And so if you think about Keon Ellis, Devin Carter kind of adds the offensive part to Keon Ellis. He rounds out that 3-and-D part of Keon Ellis with the ability to actually theoretically score and pass as well. And the one thing that he does way better than Keon Ellis is he rebounds the heck out of the ball. 8.7 rebounds his last season at Providence. So Devin Carter would be an interesting player to sort of take a flyer on. And there have been rumors that the Kings, for whatever reason, have been trying to get off of him. And I think in Summer League, Devin Carter had like a 30-point game, you know? And this is his first Summer League as well, if you keep that into account, take that into account. So he had a pretty strong Summer League for the Sacramento Kings. And so if we could make that swap, Dalton Knecht for Devin Carter, and take advantage of him having like an injury-prone rookie season and maybe the Kings being lower on him and focusing instead on Keon Ellis, I don't know. I think I would make that swap between him and Dalton Knecht, and just hope that the three-point shooting rounds itself into form and that he can stay healthy. So yeah, keep a lookout for Devin Carter. All right, moving on to my number 6 candidate. This is a player that I've talked about in the past, and let's talk about the Toronto Raptors, Ochai Agbaji. So I'll just run through this pretty quickly since I've already talked about Agbaji, and it seems like he's a popular name that's starting to circulate more and more around the Lakers sphere. So Ochai Agbaji, expiring $7 million contract. He's currently in extension talks and will become a restricted free agent next season if he's not able to come to an extension agreement with the Raptors. Agbaji is a shooting guard, small forward. He's still only 25 years old. He is 6'5" in height with a 6'10" wingspan and weighs 216 pounds. He's very muscular and sturdy. You really like his broad frame. In 24-25, during the 2024-25 season, he averaged 10.4 points per game on stellar percentages, 49% from the field, 39% from three, knocking down 1.6 threes a game. And yeah, he just had a very promising year last season. Nothing too flashy, but he did the job in terms of being efficient, not turning the ball over. And then on the defensive end, the Raptors would stick him on guys like Jason Tatum and other wings like Jaylen Brown. And he did a very effective and decent job. And then on top of that, you just like that he's physical, he's sturdily built, and he's also explosive and dynamic as a dunker, as a transition rim runner. And you have the mold and makings here of a pretty good / solid 3-and-D guy. You wish he was 6'7", you wish he was 6'8", but so far the strides that Ochai Agbaji has shown, I think, are very encouraging. And he's still like a former lotto pick of the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? I believe he was also a former number 14th pick. So he does have some of that pedigree backing to him as well. So there's Ochai Agbaji. Let's move on to my number 7th pick for a Lakers defender making under $8 million that the Lakers should consider trading for. And this one's a popular name that Lakers fans have thrown about over the last year or so. And let's talk about the Chicago Bulls, Ayo Dosunmu. So Ayo Dosunmu is an expiring $7.5 million. He plays the point guard, shooting guard position. He's still only 25 years old, so right smack dab in his prime. He is 6'4" in height with a 6'8" wingspan and weighs 200 pounds. Last season with the Bulls, he averaged 12 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, on a really healthy 49% from the field. And then he also averaged 0.9 steals per game. And Ayo Dosunmu is another one of these guards who he might actually be the most all-around player of my list today in terms of a guy who can legitimately score for you and play make for you in a pinch. Maybe theoretically, Devin Carter has a higher upside, but Ayo Dosunmu, out of the guys that I've listed, definitely has already proven that he can be, at worst, a 12 points per game, 4 assist scorer, but then also bring that hustle and motor on the defensive end as well. I was watching some of his highlights the other day, and this dude loves to sky in from the weak side and get blocks at the rim. So you have to like his level of competitiveness on the defensive end of the floor. He's also one of these very scrappy guards who, if you task him to guard a primary ball handler, he will gladly do it and show off the energy for it as well. So I really like Ayo Dosunmu. We'll see if the Chicago Bulls retain him. I know they drafted him. They probably think highly of him, and it's always tricky trying to trade with the Bulls because they overvalue their own players. They're always asking for too much. But if we're putting that to the side and they're asking for just Dalton Knecht, then yeah, I would trade for Ayo Dosunmu. Now, the question is, what does Ayo Dosunmu want on his next contract? So we'd essentially be trading Dalton Knecht for the right to sign Ayo Dosunmu to maybe $12 to $15 million per year over the next 3 years, which I think would be a pretty fair deal for him, even if we're getting into the full mid-level exception range of $15 million. But yeah, if I were trading Dalton Knecht for Ayo Dosunmu, I would try to see if I could expand the deal with the Bulls to see if we can get some other pieces coming back our way. But yeah, with that said, Ayo Dosunmu, probably the most all-around player on both ends out of this list that I'm giving you guys today. So there's number 7. Let's move on to my last candidate for best defenders making under $8 million. And let's talk about someone that I've hinted at before. And let's talk about the Denver Nuggets, Peyton Watson. Peyton Watson is on an expiring $4.5 million. If he doesn't reach an extension agreement with the Nuggets before training camp, then he'll become a restricted free agent next season. He is a shooting guard / small forward. He's still only 22 years old. Very nice size, 6'7" in height with a 7-foot wingspan. He weighs 200 pounds. Last season with the Nuggets, he averaged 8.1 points per game, 0.7 steals per game, and 1.4 blocks per game. Given the fact that he was coming off the bench and is not really known as an offensive threat, the fact that he was able to average 8 points a game is actually pretty encouraging for me. And I believe he had one of his better seasons, 3-point shooting wise, from the field as well. I think he shot like 35% from three. Yeah, I think he shot around 35% from three. So he at least showed some progress in that respect, albeit it was on a small volume, like 0.7 threes made per game. But having said that, he's definitely not a Vanderbilt type when it comes to spacing and competence. And the other thing that I like about Peyton Watson is he's a finisher at the rim. He will go up strong. He will tomahawk that ball down and jam it down defenders' throats. And so as opposed to a guy like Jared Vanderbilt, who sort of shies away from contact at the rim, that's not Peyton Watson. He'll go up with the best of them and throw down a hammer jam. So I really like Peyton Watson as a athletic defensive flyer that you can add to your stable along with a Duthiero, of a guy who can just run up and down the court, cause havoc with his active hands, cause havoc with his endless motor, and just the fact that he's explosive and dynamic on both ends of the court. A chaos agent in the truest sense of the word. And again, he's only 22 years old. So there is Peyton Watson. All right, so that does it for my list of 8 defenders and 8 trade target candidates that the Lakers should look at who are all making under $8 million. Again, you can also call this a "Who should the Lakers trade Dalton Knecht for?" episode or video. What do you guys think about this list? How would you rank the guys? Give me your top 4. Let me know who you think is the most gettable. Who is your pipe dream target? Let me know if I missed anyone as well. Do so in the comments below. Help drum up the engagement. And once again, please like this video. And most importantly, please hit subscribe on this channel. I would greatly appreciate it. This has been Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast. Thank you guys for watching. I will catch you guys next time. Peace.